Hello everyone, my name is Chavan Nikita, first year teacher trainee from Institute of Language Teaching B.Ed College, Rajkot. We are going to learn about development in adolescence. Growth means development of the whole organism, knowledge, attitudes, interest, values, and understanding of the growing and developing child in the various phases of life gain significance. Adolescence is a crucial period in the lifespan of human being. Hence, great importance has been attached to education from beginning of the human civilization. What is adolescence? The word adolescence also comes from the Latin verb adolescere, which means to grow to maturity, or in other words, we can say that when an individual becomes capable of begetting offspring. Transitional period between childhood and adulthood, when a child moves from dependency upon parents for food, cloth, shelter, and emotional support necessary of his survival and growth. However, in our country, majority of adolescents are not in a position to earn their livelihood independently because of unemployment, and thus the period of transition extends to late 20th year in our society. Definitions. Adolescence is a process rather than a period, a process of achieving the attitudes and belief needed for effective participation in the society, said by Dorothy Rogers. According to A.T. Jerslet, adolescence is that span of years during which boys and girls move from childhood to adulthood mentally, emotionally, socially, and physically. G. Stanley Hall says adolescence is a period of storm and stress. G. Stanley Hall was the first psychologist who systematically conducted research on the changes and behavioral characteristics of American adolescents in the first decade of the present century. He was greatly influenced in the formulation of this theory by the Darwin's theory of evolution of species. Adolescence is the period between 12 to 25 years of age. This is the most crucial period characterized by a number of changes in physical, intellectual, emotional, and social areas. The youth begins a new life in which new traits of personality are born. Hall characterized adolescence as a period of storm and stress. Developments in adolescence. Adolescence in human life is the stage when rapid changes take place. The individual's physical, mental, social, moral, and spiritual outlooks undergo revolutionary changes. Such changes during adolescence are more rapid than during infancy and childhood. Due to these various changes, his personality develops new dimensions. There are different types of developments in adolescence. They are physical development, cognitive development, moral development, social development, and emotional development. Physical development. In adolescence, certain inborn maturational processes lead to various physical changes. Growth is accelerated, bodily shape changes, primary and secondary sexual characteristics become marked, and hormonal level alters. Each of these physical changes produces psychological effects. The beginning of adolescence is signaled by sudden increase in the rate of physical growth. While this growth spurt occurs for both sexes, it starts earlier for girls at about 10 or 11 than for boys about age 12 or 13. Before this spurt, boys and girls are similar in height. In its early phases, girls are often taller than boys. After it is over, males become several inches taller on average than females. Cognitive development. The cognitive development takes place mainly in areas of perception, memory, generalization and categorization of concepts, handling of logical problem and reasoning, metacognition and social cognition. Intellectual powers like logical thinking, abstract reasoning and concentration are almost developed. Hero worship is the most prominent in this period. The memory in adolescence develops tremendously with the growth in vocabulary. They can imagine about situation which is not physically present before them, and their long-term memory increases. They are able mentally to deal with events in a world that extend far beyond their own immediate sphere of action. The adolescents have the ability to think about their future. They can differentiate between ideals and the actual, and they are reasonably objective in taking note of some of their weaknesses. Language development starts from the stage of infancy, but at this stage, precision in using words, selecting appropriate phrase to indicate different shades of meaning, and recognize denotation and connotation of words are clearly visible. There is an increase in the ability to see relationships and solve problems of increasing complexity and difficulty. Depth of understanding develops. The adolescent can think the solution of more difficult problems. In addition, adolescent theory of mind, the understanding of how they and others think, continues to change and develop. Younger children take what has been described as a realist approach to knowledge. In contrast, older children and pre-adolescent become aware of the fact that experts often disagree. This leads then to develop a relativist approach which recognizes that different people may interpret the same information in contrasting ways. In cognitive development does not stop in childhood, on the contrary, it continues throughout adolescence and results ultimately in more mature modes of thinking. Moral development. The formation of strong sentiments during this period intensifies the moral development. The impact of religion and religious practices is also felt for the first time at this stage. According to Kohlberg, the third level of moral development, post conventional morality, should be reached during adolescence. This is the level of self accepted principles and it consists of two stages. First stage, the individual believes that there should be a flexibility in moral beliefs to make it possible to modify and change moral standards. Second stage, individuals conform to both social standards and to internalized ideals to avoid self-condemnation rather than to avoid social censures. Morality is based on respect for others rather than on personal desires. One of the important tasks of the adolescent is to develop a philosophy of life. Neither religion nor science can furnish the youth with adequate answers to many of these problems. However, he cannot get this ready-made from any individual or book of their importance. He needs a code of this to guide him in his human relation so that he can face the problems of life with confidence and fortitude. Social development. One of the most difficult developmental tasks of adolescence relates to social adjustments. These adjustments must be made to members of the opposite sex in a relationship that never existed before and to adults outside the family and school environments. Most important and in many respects the most difficult of which are those to the increased influence of the peer group, changes in social behavior, new social grouping, new values in friendship selection, new values in social acceptance and rejection, and new values in selection of leaders. Adolescents make the radical shift from disliking members of the opposite sex to preferring their companionship to that member of their own sex. Social activities, whether with members of same sex or with the opposite sex, usually reach their peak during the high school years. Whether prejudice and discrimination will increase or decrease during adolescence will be greatly influenced by the environment in which adolescents find themselves and by the attitude and behavior of their friends and associates. The adolescent had a much firmer and more mature grasp on society's rules and regulations, had observed with the dawn of adolescence at the age of 12 or shortly after comes the recognition of a larger life, a life to be lived in common with others, and with this recognition, the desire to sustain the social code made from the common welfare. Emotional development. During adolescence, the individual wants to take independent decisions in different situations of his experiences. However, the adolescent starts to control his desires according to standards set by the society and also begins to realize his social responsibilities. If he fails in this attempt, he develops many defects in his personality. From the very start of adolescence, sexual curiosities appear in boys and girls. During adolescence, there is a kind of mental tension or conflict going on in the individual. Emotional development reaches its maximum or peak during adolescence. It is the period of heighting of all emotions like anxiety, fear, love, anger, etc. The emotions fluctuate very frequently and quickly. It is widely believed that adolescents are highly emotional, that they experience huge swings in mood and turbulent outbursts of emotion. While adolescent emotions are often intense, uncontrolled, and seemingly irrational, there is generally an improvement in emotional behavior with each passing year. 14 years old are easily excited and explode emotionally instead of trying to control their feelings, and 16 years old, by contrast, say they don't believe in worrying. Thus, the storm and stress of the period lessens as early adolescence draws to a close. Adolescence is marked by heightened emotionality. The history of world is full of the heroic deeds of adolescents, when many adolescents sacrificed their lives at the freedom of country. Heightened emotionality is evident from nail biting, tension, conflicts, quarrels with parents, etc. Thank you.